I'm going to give you a little bit of warning, okay? Church online and church in person. I'm going to be sarcastic today a couple of times, okay? You'll know when I'm being sarcastic because I'm going to be saying some things that you normally wouldn't hear from me. Just kind of a, just a forewarning, okay? I'm not changing my character or anything. I'm just going to be a little sarcastic. Now, the other thing I want you to be is just really genuine and really honest today. Is that okay? And I know we all are, but I'm going to ask you some questions and I just want you to answer them as honest as you can. Fair? I'll be sarcastic, you be honest, we'll be good to go. Right? Is that fair? Okay. How about church online? Same thing. Honest, sarcastic. Okay. So, question. Honest answer. How many of you, and just be as honest as you can, how many of you would say, I'm a lot smarter than some people? I feel like I know some more things than a lot of people. Come on, can we be honest? You're like, because you see people, right? You see people through the week. You see the way they drive, or you see the way they respond. You see the way they think, and you're like, what is wrong with, why would they do that? And right away in your mind, you're like, I wouldn't do that. That is not smart. Right away, you kind of know, all right, I probably got an edge on this person if we were comparing, right? Anybody? Because I know I am sarcastic, right? I know I am. I'm a lot smarter than a lot of people, right? I'm just going to tell you that I am, and it's not easy being a little bit smarter than some people, right? Because there's a lot of dumb people. How about it, right? Is there? Is that too strong of a word to use? Remember, I warned you a little bit. Because here's the deal. If you want to know about theology, just ask me. Right? If you want to know, I can show you. I could show you what to believe about the Bible. I could show you what to believe about the end times, spiritual gifts, women in ministry. I could even tell you the right approach to the vaccine. I could even tell you about gun control. I could tell you about how to spend your money, what to do about capitalism. I could tell you about what to do when it comes to birth, right? And rights as a woman. I could tell you about gender and all that stuff. So just let me know, and I'm going to tell you, okay? Is that fair? Because I'm smarter. I'm smart. Okay, sarcastic over. All right. That's hard to do. By the way. It's hard to bask in your own glory when you're just a little bit smarter than most people, right? Okay, all right. So now I'm taking it too far. I'm going to push you a little bit today because I want us to be honest. I want us to really, I say this and I approach it that way because if we're all honest, what I just said out loud, you may not have said it that way and you may not have used those specific examples, but you've certainly thought it and you've certainly had that conversation with somebody close to you. You might have said, why we just left this place and man, what a bunch of dumb people, right? Or what? Why would they have done that? Did you see the way they were driving? Or right? Have anybody? Is anybody? All right. Can we be honest? All right. Jesus. Let's talk about Jesus because we're at church. He was surrounded by people in his day and age when he was on this earth that were always right. There were these religious leaders. You remember them in the Bible, the Pharisees, who always thought they were smarter, who always thought they were better, who always thought they were holier than thou. And they really had this religious attitude. Now, what we need to know about the Pharisees, and we don't always talk about it, they actually did study, and they actually did invest a lot of time in understanding the Old Testament, and they did really know their stuff. Now, were they a little overboard? Yes. Were they a little bit holier than thou? Yes. But they actually were a lot smarter than a lot of the people when it came to knowing the history of God and the Old Testament and the rules that they followed. Okay, they actually did know a lot. But here's what Jesus said in Luke chapter 18, verse 9 and on. Scripture says this: to some who were confident in their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else, and we just said who this was, the Pharisees, the religious leaders, Jesus told this parable. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. Now we know the Pharisees, again, were the religious leaders. We know a tax collector in that day and age was considered just a person that nobody liked because they took more money than they should. They became rich as a result, and nobody likes paying taxes anyway. All right. Verse 11, the Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector next to me, right? I fast twice a week and I give 1/10 of all I get. So you see the attitude here of this Pharisee. Glad I'm not like him. Glad I'm not like a sinner. I do the right thing. In fact, here's a list, God, in case you forgot. Here's what I do. Then verse 13, but the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but he beat his breast and he said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And you get the impression this particular tax collector may have carried and lived with some guilt because he knew that he would take too much off the top. Like in that day and age, the Roman Empire assigned tax collectors, and they would go collect taxes from people as they came to their booth, and whatever money they can get above and beyond what they owed was money that they kept as income. And so that's why they weren't liked, because they would take too much off the top. So if they owed, let's just say $100 in taxes, they would say 140, right? And that extra $40 went right to their pocket. And so it's evident when we read this that this tax collector had some kind of a guilt, knowing that he was becoming rich by doing that, by cheating the people. And Jesus said in verse 14, I tell you that this man, this tax collector, rather than the other, the religious leader who went home justified before God, went home justified before God, the tax collector, for all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all those who humble themselves, will be exalted. So the Pharisee, he saw himself as right, and the tax collector saw himself as what? As wrong. As wrong. And so to Jesus, it wasn't about right and wrong. It was also about pride and humility, right? There was one that had pride, the other one that was humble. Because proud people don't love really well. People who have a lot of pride in who they are. And what I want to do today is I want to talk about this title. The title of this message is, You're Not As Right As You Think You Are. You're not as right as you think. You're not as right as you think. And can we just pray one more time as we continue in this time together? Lord, we come before you, Father. And Lord, as we're being honest today and sarcastic and learning your word, would you just continue, Father, to allow us to be together online and in person, Father, and replays, wherever this is being listened to, Father, to honor you and to be humble and to understand and learn something new today. In Jesus' name, amen. So you're not as right as you think. Go ahead and type that in the chat. You're not as right as you think, okay? Unfortunately, Christians, we without realizing it, a lot of times we slip into like a spiritual pride, kind of like the Pharisees. We get this Pharisee type of attitude without realizing it. And we tend to think that part of our jobs as Christians is just to be right. Because I know the truth, and I know what's right, and I know this person walking into our family event that I've never met before, just by looking at them, they're not right. They're probably not a Christian. Or we have these things that go through our mind because we're so right, and then we're so right. Here's what happens: that we're offended by wrong, by something that's wrong, and we're offended by posts, we're offended by votes, we're offended by what people believe, how they behave, and we become offensed, or we're offended. And that offense that we take grows into contempt, and then we hate what they do. We hate who they are, right? Then we start to not like people. Then we start to be really, really on edge about everything. And since we're right, we start to become guardians of the truth. And part of our job is to assess people, right? He's an okay guy, but way into himself, right? She's great at what she does, but she lets her kids run wild. She's not a great mom, I don't think, because they're kids. Have you seen her kids, right? We have these extra thoughts that we add to what we think about people. And we want to become like these church experts. The church is too shallow. The church is too boring. The church is unsafe. The church is safe. The church, like we have all of these thoughts, right, about what we think. Or my church doesn't preach just feel-good messages. We preach the word, and some preachers preach only positive stuff, and they never mention hell, and some never ask for salvation, and some do. And then we judge other churches too. Have you ever found yourself doing that? And it becomes, and we don't realize it, but we get this like Pharisee spirit about us, about being right. And I want everybody to know it. And I'm going to tell everybody how right I am. And if we're not careful, again, we fall into this because we feel like we have the right approach to COVID, the right political view, the right way to spend money, the right opinion on what to wear, the right Bible version, and we judge others who get spray tans because they look orange, their skin, right? That was, all right, you could laugh, all right, okay. We tend to think that we're the smartest, the best judges, the most right, and the truth is, this is the truth, that we're all sinners. We're all imperfect. In our hearts, like they're so easily deceived, often so wrong. One of the things that I've noticed about myself as I get a little bit older, that I'm really working on and noticing, years ago, next month, or not next month, next year will be 10 years since my dad passed. It's gonna be, did I get that timeline right? It's 10 years. And as I've watched my nephews and other family members and little kids grow up, that I try to influence now, that I'm trying to, take these roles of being responsible, being the example, giving them advice, all of the above, my nephews, my nieces, and anybody that I can. I look at what they do, and instead of me saying, man, like why would they do that? Or why don't they save money? Or why don't they do that? Why don't they go to, like, I start to think, all right, I want to help them understand why church is important. I want to help them understand why saving is important. I want to help them understand, and they're just not there yet, because I remember when I was that age, and I start to think that I probably thought a lot like them. You see what I'm saying? Because it's so easy for me to look at like family members and other people's kids and neighbors' kids and say, man, they're a mess up, or they don't think, or they're driving too fast, or they're doing that. And when I should be thinking, instead of me thinking I'm right and they're wrong, it's like, how can I help them understand why God is so important? How could I help them, give them perspective? Because there's no way that they're going to think the way I think if I have 46 years of experience and they have 20. Does that make sense? It's really like, it's a different way to think. And I've been asking God more and more as I get older how to help, instead of just look down on people or without realizing it, falling into that Pharisee spirit where they're just a mess up, or they didn't, whatever. They are young. They're growing up in a different world that I didn't grow up in. They need perspective. They need God. And let me figure out a way to sit down with them and have that conversation. Are you hearing what I'm saying, church? And it's so easy. It's so easy. Because the truth is, we were all there. We're all sinners. And this just doesn't apply to younger kids. It applies to all of us, to different times in our lives. Because if even if we're right, in other words, even if I know a better way to influence younger kids or whatever to save money, I could be a jerk about it if I'm not careful. Man, quit being so dumb. Save money, right? Like I could come off wrong. And that's the way we could come off. Even if we're right, even though we know Jesus, listen to me, even though we know Jesus is the way, the truth, the life, nobody comes to the Father except through Christ, we could come off as a jerk to people if we are self-righteous about it. We could come off as rude. We could come off as just really like a better than thou attitude. Are you hearing what I'm saying? And even, we are right, but it doesn't mean that we got to be that way. That's not the approach to take. And again, we said this a few weeks ago. Do we want to make a point or do we want to make a difference? Is our point that I'm right and you're wrong and good and get it, right? Boom, drop the mic, Or is it, hey, let's talk about this. Here's what I know about God. And I just want to share him with you. Because Jesus was more concerned, was concerned about pride and humility. This idea that I could be prideful, but what about being humble, right? All right, can I go back into sarcasm mode for a minute? Just feel like I have to say that because it's really weird, okay? I'm going to tell you about myself. Okay, can I tell you a little bit more about Joe? Okay, because I'm pretty amazing, all right? It's weird, right? Evie and I, we give, and these are true statements, we give our 10%. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, every morning, and I either work out or I study the Bible. I don't drink alcohol, very rarely. I've never smoked marijuana in my life. I eat a high protein and low carb diet. I work out 5 days a week, and I take Evie on dates. We like los dos potrillos, right? And I pay off my credit card every month. So, right? No, that's me. Do you like me? Do you want to follow Jesus because of that list that I just said of what I do? Right? The truth is, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. It doesn't matter how good of a list we have. We could all give a list of things that we do right or that we think are great or are healthy habits, right? But people aren't drawn to us because of our morals superiority. What was that word? Superiority. Sorry, I got that word wrong. But but just because you might be right doesn't mean you're making a difference. Are you hearing what I'm saying? By the way, I've watched most of The Walking Dead, that whole series, which is probably pretty bad, and I wouldn't recommend it. And I listen to more EDM music than worship. Just so pray for me. All right. So anyway, I'll slide past that one real quick. Jesus, the only one who never sinned, though he was sinless, spent time with sinful people, and sinful people loved to be around him. Jesus, and I have some photos here. Jesus went to parties where sinful people flocked to him, where sinful people wanted to be around him. Jesus allowed a prostitute to pour perfume on his feet. When Jesus was in Jericho, he spent a day with Zacchaeus, one of the sinners. Remember, he was in the tree, and he asked him to come down, and he said, today we're going to have a party at your house, right? Jesus spent time with a woman at a well who spent time in different beds of men, right? And why did sinful people want to be around Jesus? This is the question that I want to ask. Why did sinful people want to be around Jesus? Because Jesus, listen to this. If you don't hear anything else, listen to this. Jesus didn't make them feel wrong. Jesus made them feel what? Loved. Jesus didn't make them feel wrong. Jesus didn't go over there with the attitude, although he could have, to say, I'm better, I'm the Son of God, I've never sinned before, I could do a miracle, watch, check it out, boom, like he didn't have that. He didn't make them feel wrong. He made them feel loved. John 13, chapter 1 says, Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. I love that. Sometimes we just need to stop at verses like this and remember and try to imagine ourselves in that time and what Jesus was thinking, that he knew that the hour that had come for him to give his life, for him to give himself for the sins of the world, to die. And having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. He loved the people who rejected him. He loved the people who denied him. He loved the people who betrayed him. He loved the people who didn't understand him. He loved the Pharisees who thought they were better than him. He loved the people that would not acknowledge him. He loved the people who were only there for the miracles, but not for the relationship. He loved everybody. And the interesting thing is, in this particular passage, and we'll read the rest of John here in a minute, some verses that come later in John 13, but in this particular passage, he's eating dinner, what we know as the Last Supper. And he knew Judas would betray him. He knew these things were going to happen. But he still grabbed a towel, right? He grabbed his own sash, and he washed their feet. He humbled himself, knowing what was still to come. He told Judas, do what you got to do. Remember? It's powerful. In John 13, 33 through 35, Scripture says, my children, and take this personal if we can. Church Online, Jesus called you my children, my children. He considers us his children. I will be with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and just as I told the Jews, so I tell you now, where I am going, you cannot come. But he says this, until we reunite with him. A new command I give you, to do what? Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. You must. By this, everyone includes everybody. He's asking Christians to love one another, but then he's saying, if you love one another, everyone will know that you're my disciples if you love one another. The best way we could show the world that we love one another is that we're God's children is by loving one another. There's something interesting, and I'll try to be brief about this. There's something interesting that has happened over the past decade and that I've come to understand. And I do a lot of research when I study, and I've researched even the effect that YouTube has had on the church over the past decade. And what has happened is, for years, and I remember growing up in a church that, for a lack of a better way to say it, that was very legalistic when I was a kid. Everything was wrong. You couldn't do this. You couldn't chew gum in church. You couldn't watch rated R movies. You couldn't no cable TV, no secular music. Like, it was all about what you couldn't do, and the love of Christ was kind of minimal in that. Does that make sense? It was like kind of rule based. And so you had that. And then I remember meeting friends where, because we were told any form of alcohol was just the devil all the way. And I remember going to a couple of events where they were at other churches and different houses, and a leader had a beer in his hand, and I was like, oh my God, I'm running. Like, he has a beer in his hand. He's not a Christian. Like, my immediate thought, and there was these subdivisions of Christianity, different ways that was happening, and we were right in this denomination, and that denomination was wrong, and the Catholics, for sure, they're going to hell, right? And we had all of these segments, right? And what has happened, and this is important that we understand this, what has happened over the past decade on YouTube is you have different church leaders, different people who didn't necessarily plant a church, or they studied the Word of God, or they did plant a church and they were a former pastor. They're starting these channels that give perspective on why they believe the way they believe, right? And they're inviting other pastors to come on, and then they're collaborating, and they're starting to understand that, oh, okay, so Catholics believe the essentials, right? We don't agree on all the practices, but they believe the essentials. Oh, and the Lutherans, they have, this thing, but Protestants have this thing. And what's happening is, for the first time in a long time, Christianity is being brought together through the internet, because we're starting to understand that we're not the only ones right. Are you hearing what I'm saying? That we can't just stick to, like, this is the way you do church, and this is the only way, and this is the only way. But there's so much that God is using online, YouTube, different platforms to bring his body together. Could it be because he's coming back sooner? What do you think? It could be. It could be, but God is bringing in, for the first time, we're seeing perspectives, and we're understanding. There's one channel where one minister, he goes and visits different churches, different beliefs, and then he sits down with a Catholic priest. He sits down with a Protestant minister. He sits down with these different movements, and they talk, and they're like, wow, like you aren't the devil after all, right? Like, are you hearing what I'm saying? That there's more that God is doing, that God is so much bigger than we realize, and he uses so many different movements more than we thought, and it's a beautiful thing. And and at the same time, and let me just say this, at the same time, there are all these channels popping up of, like, headhunters that are saying, they're talking, why Stephen Furtick is bad, why who is it, like Joel Osteen, and yeah, there's different things about each one of them that we can nitpick and say, oh yeah, he probably shouldn't have said that. Oh yeah, he probably, but even Andy Stanley, Francis Chan, like, there's all of these people attacking at the same. You see what I'm saying? They have channels built up, and then you have all of these people that are, yeah, yes, and kind of sticking to that old school, they're wrong, and it's all about this, and they should never say that, and they just want to please people, and they just want to do what the world is, and it's like, wait. How will people ever know we're his disciples if we're attacking each other like that? If we're nitpicking every little sermon and something that somebody said 10 years ago, that maybe they grew out of that, they don't believe that anymore, or they said that and they kind of misquoted. Like, if you go back to my sermons, you'll probably hear me say something, it was the wrong story with the wrong scripture, and I missed it, right? And it wasn't that I didn't know my Bible, it's just that I'm human, I missed it. But all that to say is that the world is only going to know that we're his disciples if we love one another, and the only way we have the best chance we have at helping more people in the world who don't know God is to love one another and love them, not be more right than they are. So here's how it goes. Here's what happens. If we feel like, I have a couple of charts up here. If we feel like I'm right, I'm morally superior, right? I am right, and I just keep feeding myself with right knowledge of God, then I become a little judgmental because I kind of know. I know a little bit more. I'm smarter. There's some dumb people out there, right? And then you're easily angered and offended when somebody comes off to you like they don't know. And then there's a cycle of I'm right, I'm right. And Jesus wants us to be the exact opposite of this. Jesus, and I have a slide here, Jesus was the most right and least judgmental person who ever lived. Remember, we talked a few weeks ago about the woman caught in adultery, and the Pharisees came to confront Jesus, and they were right. They were right about confronting her in that day and age if they were following the law, that she should have been stoned, right? But then Jesus said, all right, well, whoever has never sinned, cast the first stone, remember? None of them could say that they did, so they all left. Jesus never sinned. He had the right to judge, but he didn't. He loved. Now, it was truth in love, right? He would say, I love you. Go and sin no more. He didn't say, keep living the way you're living. He did correct them. It wasn't about just loving and accepting and do whatever you want. It's loving and accepting, and here's what you should start doing. Here's the direction you should start going. You think about this woman, had she just been judged, yeah, she is a sinner. What are you thinking? Maybe don't stone her, but let's ridicule her. He didn't. He said, they don't condemn you, neither do I. Go and sin no more. And in that moment, she probably felt overwhelming gratitude, valued, loved in spite of, judged in spite of sin, in spite of her sin, despite her sin, and she felt forgiven. So here's what God wants us to do. I'll put another chart. Here's the way that God wants us to lead our lives. He wants us to lead from a perspective that I'm forgiven. That when I see something that I don't agree with, when I see something that's different from my lifestyle, when I see something or someone or something that contradicts what Jesus would say, first of all, I'm going to be grateful that I know Jesus, okay? And I'm going to be more accepting, and not saying that the sin is right, but we're going to accept that, hey, they're like that for a reason, right? And we're going to love them into the kingdom, not judge them into the kingdom, because people don't change by judging them. People change when you love them. Are you hearing what I'm saying? People don't change when you judge them. People change when you love them into the kingdom. So if we have this attitude that we have a family member, if you have whatever the example might be, you might have a family member, you might have, and they just are living in a way that is destructive, or a different lifestyle, or whatever that is, and it's something that you know God wouldn't agree with. You're going to say, first of all, I'm grateful that I'm saved because I know me. That's the perspective before you even think anything. I'm just grateful I know God. And I'm going to love this person. I'm going to welcome them into my home, to my party, to my celebration, to my graduation, to my birthday, to whatever it is. And if God gives me the opportunity, I'll share a little bit and I'll love on them. And that love will open up doors to share more and more about what God would really want for their lives. It's not about being right. It's about loving people. Are you hearing what I'm saying? People do not change by judging them. People change when you love them. People will rarely help somebody by judging their sins, but we will help point them to Jesus if we love them. I can't tell you, and I'm going to finish up here in just a second. I can't tell you how awkward it is for me. And awkward, I don't know if that's the right word, but most people who know me know that I'm a pastor. And outside of here, whether it's the gym, whether it's at a family event, function, or whatever, and mainly I think at work this happens. Somebody will come around, we'll be having a meeting, they'll say a cuss word or whatever, they'll go, sorry, Joe. Like they'll And some of them, like they feel like they have to change everything because they're in front of me. And I get the whole, like, they respect me type of thing, but for some of them, they just feel like they're bad people around. Does that make sense? And I'm thinking to myself, I just thought that word you said, actually. No, I didn't. Like I was upset at the situation too, like I don't, are you hearing what I'm saying? Because people are so used to feeling judged. They're so used to feeling like they're so wrong that you get in these situations and you just want to say, man, I love you. You don't, just be you. Just be you. It's okay. I could take it. Like, talk the way you talk or whatever. I'm going to love you. I'm still going to be a friend. We're still going to work together at work. We're still going to be coworkers. Just be you. And that opens a door for them to say, hey, Joe's a real person. And you'd be surprised how many conversations I've been able to have after that. Because I'm just saying, it's okay. I could take it. You don't have to feel any which way. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Let me read one final scripture and we'll get out of here. We're running a little late. 1 Corinthians 13 says, if I speak in the tongues of men or angels but do not have love, I am a resounding gong or clanging cymbal. Only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and knowledge, if I have faith that can move mountains, but I do not have what? Love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. That's what Paul told the church. It's all about love. It's about us saying, God, I'm honored and privileged and humbled that I know you, you forgave me. I'm going to take that same approach by loving my brothers and loving people who are far from you. How about it? You're not as right as you think you are. Let's pray. Lord, we come before you, Father, and we're so grateful, Lord, for everybody that's listening online, the replay of this, wherever they might be listening from. We're grateful, Lord, that we get this opportunity to be together. And I pray that you would today, Father, remind us, Father, that it's about love, not about judging. It's about, Lord, loving and not about being right. It's about, Lord, taking, Father, genuine humility in knowing that you brought us from sinful place. You're still molding us. We're still in our process of growing. And who are we, Father, to just be judgmental and frown upon other people who aren't there or not where we're at, Father? But we should remember first and foremost where you brought us from, be humble about that, accept other people as they are, and then love them into your kingdom, Father. Would you help us to do that? In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Can we give God a clap offering this morning? Thank you. Eternal Rock Church will be in part number 4 of No Offense next week. Pastor Craig will take us home to finish this. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.